इस्लाम एट अ ग्लांस इज ब्रॉट टू यू बाय अमेरिका में मुसलमानों की नुमाइंदा तंजीम इस्लामिक सर्कल ऑफ नॉर्थ अमेरिका समाजी शऊर से आगाही हो या इस्लामी तर्ज जिंदगी का दर्स, इक्ना ने हमेशा अपना मौसर किरदार अदा किया। कार खैर में हमारा साथ दीजिए। फ़ोन 718-658-1199।
बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। अस्सलामु अलैकुम वरहमतुल्लाहि वबरकातुह। अल्हम्दुलिल्लाहि अहदा वस्सलातु वस्सलामु अला नबिय्य बादा। The topic for today is Islam and the responsibilities of social contract and citizenship. So let's look at social contract first. What does it mean? Social contract has two parts to it mainly. One is related to the morals and moral values of a society, and the other one is related to the legal part of it that defines all the legal system, the constitution, and all that. So for the moral part of it, you don't sign any document. You are just, by living in a particular society, you agree to the norms of that society, moral norms of that society. And then the other one is it comes under the Citizenship Act and all the legalities of various businesses that you do in a particular area or particular country. So altogether, it is called a social contract. So citizenship, it's also a part of it. Now, in Islam or for Muslims, all the contracts, whether it's legal, whether it's moral, whether it is you sign it or you don't sign it, all the contracts come under a master contract. That master contract is the one that you have with your master, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That master contracts define some rules, regulations, some fundamentals. So all the contracts that we do in our life, whether it is a marriage contract or a commercial contract or anything, or as I said, even the morality, it has to conform with what Allah has defined as the basis, as the fundamentals. So it doesn't, we have to follow that rule as Muslims. And in that fundamentals is one key thing which I want to pick over here for discussion, for the sake of discussion today. In one of the ayahs says, وَلْتَكُمْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةٌ يَهْدُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ يأمرون بالمعروف وينهون عن المنكر وتأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمنون بالله. So in that phrase that says Amr bil Maruf wa Nahi anil Munkar. So you enjoin the good and forbid the evil. So this is part of that contract that I mentioned to you that we have or with our master, and we call it a master contract. There are some other things also, but we will take it to discuss our topic and understand what are the obligations due to this particular fundamental norm that we have in Islam. Take, for instance, two examples that we will discuss in this topic. One is that you are living in a country or in a place where Muslim majority exists, and regardless whether the country is running according to the Islamic law or not, but the majority of Muslims are living there. This is one example. The other example is where the Muslims are living as a minority, and overwhelmingly the people living there are non-Muslims, and the laws and regulations of that country also do not conform with the Islamic laws and legislations in many cases, in many instances. So in the first example, where Muslims are in majority, you will find that in all such places, there is always a group of Muslims or many groups of Muslims which are there, which are thriving for or which are striving for the implementation of Islamic laws and Sharia in that particular region or particular country. So for a Muslim living in those lands, there is no better way just to join those movements and to work towards the changing the society according to the master contract. But in other societies where Muslims live in minority, remember Allah says, "La yukallifullahu nafsan illa wus'aha." Allah do not put on you the burden that you cannot sustain. So you are not required in those countries to do exactly what you are required to do in the Muslim countries. And within those non-Muslim environment, there are multiple of scenarios. So I will just mention to you a few. For example, Muslim minorities live in India and in China, as compared to the Muslim minorities living in the Western countries. There's big differences. For example, in these countries which I mentioned, India and China, the Muslim minorities are huge in number. Big number of Muslims live there, and they are more than the population of many Muslim countries. And also, these two communities, Muslim communities, are very old. They are there, they established almost at the time when Prophet ﷺ was even alive. So we find the masajid in China and in India from the times when Prophet ﷺ was alive. So it is so deep-rooted societies and communities are present there, and a big number. So the way they react with those societies is completely different, and it has to be different because they are very established, very big societies, and they have their, some of them, for example, in India, there are personal law of Muslims that is being followed. Yes, there are some debates and some struggle always goes on with respect to the legislations and all that, and new things that are coming up. But that is how this particular community behaves and lives. In China, unfortunately, the personal law is not available, but there also the roots of Muslims are very deep, and they are in that society everywhere, all over China. And in case of the Western countries where the Muslim minorities are relatively newer, it's like a developing in the development stage where the communities are developing. For example, if you look at United States in 70s and 80s and even 90s, there was the time when they established the schools for the Muslim children, and then afterwards there were, in the next 10 or 20 years, they came up with other institutions, some research institutions, some financial institutions, and all that. So this community is developing and forming. And in that particular situation, the requirement of the community of the social contract is different than the other places, either the Muslim countries or where the old and established communities are living. So what are the rules that one should follow over there? Here, we would like to look at a concept which is a very important concept in Islam, which is about the hijrah or migration. And I will try to relate these two things in the end of my talk. The concept of hijrah is that one is supposed to leave a place where one cannot practice his religion or his deen, Islam. And it is very difficult to do that. And based on how much difficult it is and how much he has in his, he is capable of moving out of that place, that will define how much necessary it is to move out of that place. So that is a very important point. So this hadith which talks about hijrah, which says that فَمَنْ هِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ فَهِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. Whoever has migrated towards Allah and His Rasul is actually migrated, is the one who migrated towards Allah and His Rasul. And further in that hadith it says that the one who migrates for the sake of dunya, his hijrah is for that sake. So it is not acceptable, it's not rewarded by Allah. So although this is how it is explained, but it says that the hijrah, it is possible to make hijrah for other reasons, for dunya even, but it will not have the reward of that hijrah which is actually for saving your deen. So these are the two different scenarios you should keep in mind. So the people who migrated to places in Europe, Western Europe and America and other places, majority of them migrated for the sake of dunya. Some of them went for seeking good work, making some money, living a good life, which is available over there. In many Islamic countries, the situation is not so good. Some may have gone there for the sake of getting some good education and all that. So all these things there may be some things which are even rewarded, but majority of the things, if it is for the sake of dunya, it is not haram, but it is not that hijrah that we are talking about in the quote unquote for Allah and His Rasul. So in this situation, when somebody is there, he is already there or she is already there. So the social system over there and the laws and legislations, whatever is applicable in that society, may not be exactly which is the requirement of Islam. So one has to find a way in that society. The scholars of that area, the people of that area living there, they have to find a way that they don't want to leave the norms of the fundamentals of the master contract that I mentioned to you, and that also has Amr bil Maruf and Nahi Anil Munkar as part of it, very important part of it. So how do we do Amr bil Maruf and Nahi Anil Munkar in that society? Of course, the best way, if there is something bad happening in front of you, it says that you remove it by your hand, but it is not possible over there. Or the other way is to raise your voice against something wrong which is happening. And the third thing is to feel bad in your heart. So that is the weakest stage of Iman. So for any Muslim, if things are not happening according to what Allah has explained in His Deen, then at least he should feel bad in his heart. And moreover, in these Western societies, this is good that they have a kind of a freedom for you to at least speak out. Nobody stops you from speaking against the evil. So you are required to speak against the bad things that are happening and also to support the good things that are happening over there. So that part is the third thing that you should change it with your hand. That is not even in many Muslim countries even available today, because as we said that in many Muslim countries we lack the actual Islamic system, but there is a struggle going on. The people are striving towards establishing that system. But in those countries, the social contract has to be followed with the spirit of obeying Allah and finding your ways. Allah will be merciful for the people who will strive to find the ways, and there may be some deficiencies in them, but they will get the reward for the niyyah. Because this hadith which I just mentioned to you about hijrah, it starts with that famous phrase, innamal amalu bin niyyat. This is in the same hadith. It starts like that. So it's on your niyyah that if your niyyah is good, you will definitely strive to find a way to obey the master, to make all your contracts, whether social contracts or your citizenship contract, under the master contract. So if that is the attitude, and if that is the attitude of our scholars over there, especially the scholars, there is a term called fiqh al-aqaliyah. That means the fiqh of the minorities, which is not going to be same as the fiqh of the majorities. Because fiqh of aqaliyah has some other requirements that mostly the scholars and the people living in those areas will understand. And the people who are not living in those areas and living in, for example, Muslim majority countries, they will not be able to comprehend what they are going through. So it should not be the attitude of the people who are living outside or who are living in the Islamic world to criticize or look at them, look down at them, that they are not following certain things, because it is not in their in their power to do that, or they are not able to do that. As I said, la yukallifullahu nafsan illa wus'aha. So whatever is in your power, what the environment give you the permission to do that, you can only do that. Allah will not going to question you beyond that. But again, coming back to the concept of hijrah, which I said that we will end our talk with, is this concept of hijrah is very important. So Prophet ﷺ said in one of the hadiths, bil jamaati was sami' wat ta'ati wal hijrati wal jihad. So I order you for 5 things. Bil jamaat, that means stay in a jamaat together. Was sami' wa ta'ati, and listen to your leadership, the scholars and the people who are organizing your community or your country. Bis sami' wa ta'ati, and then obey them. Listen and obey. Wal hijrati, and then migrate. And we already explained why we are supposed to migrate. Wal jihad, and the last thing is jihad, to change the thing or to establish the peace in a particular part of the world. So these 5 things Allah's Rasul has ordered us in his hadith. So the first one is bil jamaat. That is very important. Even in the Islamic countries or outside of Islamic countries, in the Muslim majority, they're supposed to live together, to gel together. Because in another hadith it says that if you are in a herd, the sheep which is with the herd is safe, which goes astray by itself, and then the any animal can eat that sheep which strays away from the herd of sheep. So you need to stay together in Jama'ah. And again, in another hadith it says that Yadallahu bil Jama'ah, the protection of Allah is with the Jama'ah. And the whole hadith, it says, the first part of this hadith, it says that my ummah is not going to agree. Allah has protected my ummah from agreeing to something which is falsehood. That means our ulama or scholars are not going, all of them are not going to agree to something which is wrong. So the maruf and the good things of the society in where the Muslim majority people are living are going to stay according to what Islam says. It doesn't matter if the law and the legal system is not according to that, but the scholars of the ummah are never going to agree on something which is wrong. They will continue to struggle to establish the system which is according to the fundamentals of Islam, right? So this is the Islamic countries, but in the other places where Muslim minorities are living, maybe the maruf. Maruf means what is, remember we did that Amar bil Maruf and Nahy anil Munkar. Maruf is something which is agreed upon by the society. And by the society in Islamic terms, it means the scholars of Islam, they agree on that and the people follow that. So we just saw the hadith in which Prophet ﷺ said they are not going to go agree on any falsehood. This is the same thing. The scholars in Islamic world or outside of Islamic world, they will never agree on something which is falsehood. But the thing is that society also has a norm in it, which is the maruf in that society. Not the maruf for the Muslims, but that maruf for moral values of that societies are existing over there. So that you don't have to be in a confrontational mode, but you have to find your way in a manner that the confrontation doesn't happen, and you still are able to save your iman, and you are able to work according to the master contract. But if it is not possible in any particular circumstances, then hijrah. That means you have to migrate from that place. And a migration, again, it will depend on what capabilities you have. Did you have means to go somewhere? Did you have an option to go somewhere? If somebody doesn't have an option, doesn't have the means and money and all that, then Allah will treat him according to all the parameters. So for hijrah, if one is not able to perform the basic duties of Islam, then the life is becoming difficult for one to survive as a Muslim in a particular environment or society. Then the option is to move out of that society to a place where he can practice his deen. So in that, there are certain things that we need to consider. One is that how much capable a person is to move out of a particular situation, and how much difficulty he's facing and how much he is able to sustain. and also what options he has. All those things, and on top of all of that, his niyyah, as we said that the hadith about the hijrah starts with innamal amalu bin niyat. So his niyyah and all these factors are going to define that whether moving out from a particular place to another place is obligatory on him, or it is just an optional thing that if he move or if he doesn't move, Allah will consider all these factors and reward or punish a person according to that. So this is all the parameters one has to consider. And as we said, that the hijrah for Allah and His Rasul is the one in which one leaves a place to another place for the sake of saving his deen. But there are other kind of migrations, like for education, for other purposes. They are not haram, but they will not be rewarded as such. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المؤمنين والمؤمنات. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
इस्लाम एट अ ग्लास वॉज ब्रॉट टू यू बाय अमरीका में मुसलमानों की नुमाइंदा तंजीम इस्लामिक सर्कल ऑफ नॉर्थ अमेरिका। समाजी शऊर से आगाही हो या इस्लामी तर्ज जिंदगी का दर्स, इक्ना ने हमेशा अपना मौसर किरदार अदा किया। कार खैर में हमारा साथ दीजिए। फ़ोन 718-658-1199।